The security office at St. Catherine's had exactly three things: a desk from the 1970s, a bank of monitors showing grainy camera feeds, and a laminated list of rules taped to the wall. Most were normal: check doors, log patrols, call police for trespassers. But rule number 7 made my skin crawl. If you hear your name being called from the 3rd floor, do not respond. If the elevator moves between midnight and 3 a.m., do not board it. If you see yourself on the 3rd floor cameras, destroy this list and leave immediately. The 3rd floor cameras had been disconnected. The cables were cut clean through. I'd taken this job out of desperation. 6 months unemployed in Detroit had drained my savings, and the ad for a night security position at St. Catherine's promised decent pay with minimal requirements. The hospital had been closed since 2011. Something about a patient incident that the hiring manager wouldn't elaborate on. All I had to do was walk the halls, check the locks, and keep out urban explorers. Simple enough, or so I thought. The first 2 hours were exactly what I'd expected. Empty hallways, flickering fluorescent lights, and the kind of silence that only exists in abandoned buildings. I did my rounds with a flashlight, checking each floor methodically. 1st floor, emergency room, reception, cafeteria. 2nd floor, patient rooms, nursing stations, operating theaters. Everything locked and dusty. The 3rd floor stairwell door had been welded shut. Thick beads of metal sealed every gap, and someone had spray painted "Do Not Open" across the surface in red letters that had dripped before drying. I returned to the security office and settled in with a thermos of coffee and my phone. The monitors showed nothing but empty corridors bathed in that green-tinted night vision glow. 8 screens total, 2 for each floor, plus the parking lot and main entrance. The 3rd floor screens were dark, their cables deliberately severed and left dangling behind the desk. At 11:45 p.m., I heard it for the first time. A soft shuffling from somewhere above, like someone walking in hospital slippers. The sound was faint, but rhythmic, moving from one end of the building to the other. I checked the monitors. Nothing on the 1st or 2nd floor. The shuffling continued. Old building, I told myself. Probably just the heating system or pipes expanding. These places made all kinds of noises. At midnight exactly, the elevator dinged. I looked up from my phone to see the elevator indicator light showing movement. 3rd floor to 2nd, 2nd to 1st. The doors opened in view of camera 3, revealing an empty car with flickering overhead lights. Then the speakers crackled to life. David, my name, clear as day, coming from the elevator's emergency intercom. Not a recording, not a malfunction. Someone had said my name. David, please come up. We need help. The voice was female, middle-aged, with a slight Midwest accent. She sounded tired, desperate even, but the elevator was empty. I could see it clearly on the monitor. There's been an accident. 3rd floor, room 317. Please hurry. Rule number 7 echoed in my mind. If you hear your name being called from the 3rd floor, do not respond. I stayed in my chair, hands gripping the armrests. The elevator doors remained open for 30 seconds, then closed on their own. The car returned to the 3rd floor without anyone pressing a button. The shuffling sounds resumed, louder now. Multiple sets of feet moving across the floor above. Then something else, a rhythmic banging, like someone hitting a pipe with a metal rod. The pattern was deliberate. 3 hits, pause, 3 hits, pause, SOS. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We can see you watching the monitors. I spun around, checking the office door. Still locked. The windows showed only the empty parking lot. When I looked back at my phone, another message had appeared. Camera 7 is working fine. You should reconnect it. Camera 7 would be 3rd floor, east wing. The cable was right there, severed but not removed. It would take 2 seconds to splice it back together. I didn't touch it. The banging grew more insistent, and now I could hear voices mixing with it. Not just one or two, but dozens, all talking at once. Some were crying, others laughing, and underneath it all was a sound that made my stomach turn. Something wet and organic, like breathing through fluid. At 12:30 a.m., the elevator dinged again. This time when the doors opened, the lights inside were off. The camera's night vision showed the interior in that ghostly green tint, and for just a moment, I thought I saw something move in the back corner. A shape that might have been a person sitting on the floor, knees drawn up to their chest. David, she won't stop bleeding. Please, we did everything we could, but she won't stop bleeding. A different voice now, male, younger. He sounded like he was crying. Pulled out the employment contract I'd signed earlier that day, flipping to the section about the third floor. There it was, in black and white. Employee acknowledges that the third floor is structurally unsound and agrees to never, under any circumstances, access this area. But structurally unsound floors don't make voices. They don't send text messages. They don't know your name. The monitor for camera 2 flickered. For half a second, I saw something impossible. A fully lit hospital corridor with nurses in scrubs walking past, pushing gurneys, carrying clipboards. The scene looked modern, current, like the hospital was still operational. Then it went back to showing the empty, dust-covered hallway. My phone buzzed again. She's been waiting since 2011. Room 317. Please. 2011. The year the hospital closed. I pulled up Google on my phone, searching for St. Catherine's Hospital, Detroit 2011 incident. The first result was a news article. Hospital closes following patient death, staff disappearances. The article was brief. A patient named Margaret Chen had died during routine surgery, but her body had gone missing from the morgue. 3 nurses and an orderly who'd been working the third floor that night were never found. The hospital shut down within a week, citing infrastructure concerns. The banging upstairs suddenly stopped. The silence was worse than the noise had been. I could feel it pressing against my eardrums, thick and oppressive. Then, very softly, I heard footsteps directly above the security office. Slow, deliberate steps, like someone pacing. The elevator dinged a third time. 1 a.m. exactly. When the doors opened this time, there was a woman standing inside. She wore a hospital gown, light blue with small flowers, the kind they give to patients. Her hair was black, shoulder length, and wet like she'd just showered. She stood perfectly still, facing the back wall of the elevator, not moving even as the doors remained open. I watched her on the monitor, unable to look away. After 30 seconds, she slowly turned around. Her face was pale, almost gray, and her eyes were completely black. No whites, no iris, just solid black from edge to edge. She smiled, and when her lips parted, dark liquid spilled out, running down her chin and staining the front of her gown. "David," she said, and her voice came through every speaker in the office, the elevator intercom, my phone, even the ancient computer on the desk. "I'm Margaret. I've been trying to leave for so long, but they won't let me. The nurses, they keep saying the surgery isn't finished." The lights in the elevator began to strobe, and in the flashing illumination, I saw them. Other figures standing behind Margaret, pressed against the walls of the elevator car. They wore scrubs, surgical masks pulled down around their necks, their hands covered in latex gloves, stained dark. "We need to finish the procedure," one of them said. "She can't leave until we finish." Margaret's black eyes never blinked. "They cut me open, David. They cut me open and forgot to put something back. I can feel the empty space where it should be. Right here." She placed a hand on her stomach, and her fingers went through the gown, through her skin, disappearing into her torso like it was made of smoke. The elevator door started to close, but Margaret stepped forward, putting her foot in the gap. The doors bounced off her leg and opened again. "Come up, David. Help me find what they took. Help me leave." Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I stayed frozen in the chair. Rule number 7 was the only thing keeping me anchored. Do not respond. Do not board the elevator. I know you can hear me, Margaret continued. I can see you on the cameras. We fixed them, you know. We needed eyes down there. She tilted her head, that black liquid still dripping steadily from her mouth. Look at camera 7, David. See what really happened. My hand moved toward the severed cable before I caught myself. Whatever was on that camera feed, I didn't want to see it. Margaret's expression changed, the smile fading into something like disappointment. You're going to be difficult, aren't you? Just like Marcus. Marcus, the previous security guard who'd quit after one night. He lasted 4 hours, she said. Ran out screaming about the things we showed him. But you're following the rules. Someone warned you. The figures behind her moved forward, and I could see their faces now. Their eyes were normal, human, but wrong somehow. Like they were looking at something beyond the camera, beyond the physical space of the elevator. The 3rd floor isn't structurally unsound, one of the nurses said. Her voice was flat, emotionless. It's structurally impossible. We exist in the spaces between seconds, in the moments the living can't perceive. But sometimes, when the conditions are right, we can reach through. The reflection began to fade, and Margaret's voice became distant, echoing. No, that was years ago. It's always 2:47 here, I said, understanding suddenly flooding through me. Every night, you reset at 3:15. That's why you can't leave. You're not stuck in the hospital. You're stuck in that night, repeating the same few hours over and over. Her scream was horrible, a sound of rage and despair that made the windows rattle. The monitors went crazy, flashing between empty corridors and that impossible scene of a working hospital. The elevator doors opened and closed repeatedly, and from somewhere above, I heard running footsteps, dozens of them, racing back and forth across the 3rd floor. Then, at exactly 3:15 a.m., everything stopped. The monitors showed empty hallways. The elevator sat quietly on the 1st floor. The reflection in the computer screen showed only my own terrified face. The silence was complete and absolute. I stayed in that chair until sunrise, not moving, barely breathing. When my replacement arrived at 7 a.m., a bored-looking older man named Carl, I handed him the keys without a word. Rough night, he asked, noticing my shaking hands. Read the rules, I said, especially number 7. He laughed. You kids and your ghost stories. Been doing this job for 2 years. Never seen anything stranger than a couple teenagers trying to break in. I wanted to argue, to warn him, but then I realized he did the day shift. Whatever lived on the 3rd floor, whatever Margaret and her surgical team had become, they only existed in those dark hours between midnight and 3:15 a.m. As I walked to my car, I looked back at the hospital one last time. In a 3rd floor window, barely visible in the morning light, someone had written something in what looked like condensation on the glass. See you tomorrow night, David. I didn't go back. I called that afternoon and quit. Didn't even ask for my one night's pay. Let them find someone else to sit in that office, watching empty monitors and pretending not to hear the sounds from above. Let someone else discover what really happened to Margaret Chen and why the 3rd floor isn't just structurally unsound. It's temporally fractured, caught in an endless loop of medical horror. But sometimes, at 3:15 a.m., I wake up in a cold sweat, and I swear I can hear elevator doors opening and a woman's voice calling my name, asking me to help her find what they took. I never answer. I just remind myself of rule number 7 and wait for the sun to rise. Some jobs aren't worth any amount of money, and some rules, no matter how strange they seem, are all that stand between us and things that should never be discovered. Margaret is still up there, still searching, still dying, and not dying every single night at 3:15 a.m. And somewhere in Detroit, There's probably another desperate security guard reading that laminated list of rules, thinking it's all just some elaborate prank. I hope they're smarter than I was. I hope they never hear their name being called from the 3rd floor, but mostly, I hope they never, ever reconnect Camera 7.